Well, thank you so much, Chairman Latta. I'm so glad to work with you and everyone here on the subcommittee again this Congress. And I want to thank our witnesses for your testimony today. It's been incredibly useful and important. I represent the energy capital of the world in Houston, and we know firsthand what unleashing American energy looks like. In 2023, Texas generated more electricity and produced more oil and gas than any other state. Texas also led all states in the United States in the production and generation of wind power, and it was second in solar generation and battery storage capacity. So, like my colleagues, I am disappointed that in the first few days of President Trump's term, he has politicized energy issues by declaring a national energy emergency, even though, as we have heard today, the United States is producing energy at record levels, by rescinding many of the Biden administration's actions related to clean energy that we worked on in this committee and in the Congress, by withholding funding, by halting new offshore wind projects, threatening baseless tariffs on resources that our domestic energy industry depends on, potentially spiking prices for U.S. consumers as well, and reducing the federal workforce of regulators that we need in our energy sector, among others. We heard a little bit of that from Congresswoman Schreier. Members of this committee know that my constituents and I agree substantively on some of the policy ends that have been announced in recent days, especially efforts to address permitting delays and renewing the review of LNG export permits. And I appreciated your testimony on that issue, Mr. McCown. But the means employed to do this are deeply troubling. And frankly, I'm disappointed that this committee didn't get the permitting work done in the last Congress, because that is what we're here to do, and that's what we need to do. I hope we'll be able to do it in this Congress. That said, the sweeping orders that President Trump has signed really fail to give our energy industry the regulatory certainty it needs to succeed. It's just not what unleashing American energy looks like. With the United States producing more energy than ever before from all sources, now is not the time to halt innovation, much of which is happening in my district and my hometown near Mr. Weber and not too far from Mr. Pfluger. Houston is home to 11% of U.S. energy jobs and more than 4,700 energy-related firms. And the number one issue I hear about from people in the business who work in my district and beyond, many of them API members, is the need to know the rules and requirements to trust that long-term projects can move forward once they are approved. They need permitting certainty. They need investment certainty. They need to plan, and before making these multi-billion-dollar investments that Americans rely on, the people who are undertaking them need to be able to rely on the process. And what we are seeing right now is a destruction of the process. The legislative process, the agency process, a destruction that is going to have impacts and chaos for years to come. Among other things, having a reliable process means having qualified, experienced personnel in the agencies responsible for the permitting process. We have all seen the news of what's happening in the agencies and the directives from unelected billionaire Elon Musk, who now has access to all kinds of databases and has interns sending legally questionable memos to career civil servants telling them to quit their jobs. I can't imagine that anyone waiting on a permit wants that kind of chaos and delay. It also means supporting investments of all kinds in energy to get more energy to the grid for Americans and to continue to develop technologies that get more power onto the grid and technologies that we can export. The war on wind and solar is nonsensical, and don't just take it from me. It was the Republicans in Texas, President Trump's first Secretary of Energy, then Governor Rick Perry, that had the vision to build out our wind infrastructure more than 2 decades ago. The diversity, yes, diversity of energy sources on our grid in Texas has spurred innovation of all kinds. We have some of our own challenges to address with grid resiliency and demand, but taking sources off the grid is not the way to solve it. And it's critical, as you said, Ms. Eversole, that lawmakers and industry experts work together to implement smart energy policy that will be durable, that will allow members of our communities to innovate, create, and plan for the future that we all want. That said, I've only got about 20 seconds left for questions, so I am going to submit the many questions that I have for the panel for the record, but I really want to thank you all for your time. Each of you has questions coming from me, and I'm sorry that with so much to say and so much going on, I didn't get the chance to have you answer them, but I look forward to seeing your written responses on these hugely important issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.